Welcome to Mind Set in Stone podcasts, where we dive deep into the most compelling books on the shelf. Join hosts Dave and Poppy as they uncover the stories, themes, and ideas that shape our understanding and inspire curiosity. Get ready to explore the big ideas that leave a lasting impact. Let's get started.
Welcome to this deep dive, where we're really going to dig into You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And wow, you weren't kidding around with those highlights. That's quite the stack. So before we bring in the expert perspective, I'm curious, what's resonating most with you so far? What part of your life are you hoping to, maybe give a Louise Hay style makeover?
It's funny you should say that because what I find fascinating about Louise's work is how she connects all these different areas of personal growth, like whether it's better health, relationships, even finances. She's arguing that self-love is the kind of the bedrock. And the best part is she gives you actual tools to, shift those deep down negative beliefs that might be holding us back.
Okay, so let's talk about this idea that we're responsible for. Like everything we experience, that's a pretty bold statement, even for a self-help book.
It can feel intense, that's for sure. But the way I see it, Louise is saying our thoughts are crazy powerful. Like they literally create our reality. So those negative thoughts we all have sometimes, they're not just random, right? They're showing us patterns, probably coming from self-criticism we maybe learned when we were younger.
You highlighted that part where Louise talks about a client who was binge eating after being really hard on herself, and man, that hit home for me. Because sometimes emotional eating is totally about avoiding uncomfortable feelings, right?
100%. And that's where Louise is so great. She doesn't just leave us hanging with that realization. She gives us things to do.
Yeah.
Like looking in the mirror and saying, affirmations of self-approval. Even if it feels weird at first, it's all about retraining the mind.
And then there's all this stuff about forgiveness, which is so powerful, especially considering Louise's own story, right? Healing from cancer by dealing with resentment. That just blows my mind.
Right. It really shows you what letting go can do. And it's important to remember what Louise says. Forgiveness isn't about saying what someone else did was okay. It's about setting yourself free from being stuck in that old hurt.
You flagged that visualization where we imagine showering people we resent with good things. Mm-hmm. Have you actually done that with clients? What's that like?
It's wild how powerful it can be. I had this one client. He was holding on to all this resentment toward the former business partner, and it was really blocking him from new opportunities. And as we did the visualization, it wasn't about pretending the hurt didn't happen. It was like shifting his energy from blame to peace. And after that, things really started opening up for him.
It's like holding on to that resentment was like blocking his energy or something, which actually makes me think about Louise's ideas about abundance, because you mentioned wanting a financial boost. Does she actually talk about money directly?
Oh, totally. She's got this whole thing about what she calls prosperity consciousness. And basically, she wants us to challenge that scarcity mindset we all kind of grow up with, like the idea that there's only so much money to go around and we got to fight for our piece of the pie.
Ugh, tell me about it. It's like we're programmed to believe there's never enough.
And Louise would say that belief is the problem, that it's actually blocking abundance from coming to us. So she wants us to really look at our beliefs about money. Like, what are those hidden messages we've picked up that might be sabotaging us financially?
Okay, so give us some examples. What kind of messages are we talking about here?
Oh, man. It could be anything from the classic money is the root of all evil to rich people are greedy, or even just I'm no good with money. And these beliefs often come from, stuff from our childhood, things we hear in society, even just our own past experiences with money,
It's crazy how much we internalize without even realizing it. Like those messages become our reality, even if they're not true.
Exactly. And Louise would say those limiting beliefs, they can show up in our bank accounts. So if you're struggling with debt or feeling stressed about money or even self-sabotaging your own financial success, it might be time to look at what you really believe about money.
Okay, so let's say you realize, whoa, I've got some messed up money beliefs. How do you actually change those? It's not that easy to just suddenly think differently, is it?
That's where we got to put in the work. But the good news is Louise gives us a ton of tools. And one of her favorites is, of course, affirmations.
Right. We talked about those before. But do affirmations really work for something as concrete as money? It's not like we can just say, I am rich, and poof, $1 million appear.
Yeah, I wish it were that easy. But it's the same principle. When we constantly affirm the reality we want, we're basically like reprogramming our subconscious mind, replacing those old scarcity programs with new abundance-based ones.
So instead of I don't have enough, it's more like I am open to receiving abundance.
Exactly. And she says to get specific with it, especially with finances. So instead of just, I am abundant, you might say, I am a money magnet, or I'm open to unexpected income.
I like that. It's like we're sending a direct message to the universe about what we want to call in.
That's the idea. And she also says it's not enough to just say it. You got to feel it too, you know?
Embody that feeling of abundance. Like, what would it feel like to have your finances handled? No stress.
Yes. And that can be so powerful, especially for people who've struggled with money. You're literally rewiring your brain, creating new associations between yourself and abundance.
And it's not even just about, like, attracting more money, is it? It's about feeling abundant in all areas.
100%. It's about that feeling of being grateful for what you do have, whether it's your health, your relationships, your talents, even just a beautiful day.
Speaking of gratitude, Louise is big on that too, right?
Huge. She saw it as like essential to prosperity consciousness. When we focus on what we're grateful for, even the small stuff, it shifts our energy from lack to abundance.
It's like they say, what you focus on expands. Focus on what you don't have, you get more of that. But if you can appreciate what is there,
you open yourself up to receiving more. And she's all about making gratitude a daily practice. Like, keep a gratitude journal. Write down 5 things you're thankful for every single day.
Training your brain to look for the good stuff, even when things are tough.
Yeah.
Like it. So we've talked about taking responsibility for our thoughts, our beliefs. But Louise also says we need to release the need for our problems. What does that even mean? Sounds kind of counterintuitive at first.
It does, right. Like, we don't want to pretend our problems don't exist. But what she's getting at is how we can get, like, attached to our problems, almost make them part of our identity.
Okay, give me an example. I need to really get this.
All right, let's say you keep attracting emotionally unavailable partners. Maybe you even joke that you have a talent for it.
Oof, yeah, I've been there. But I see what you mean. By identifying with that pattern, it's like you're guaranteeing it'll keep happening.
Exactly. Releasing the need for the problem doesn't mean pretending it's not there. It's about going from, this is just who I am, to, this is a pattern I'm ready to heal. Subtle shift, but super powerful.
It's like you're taking back your power, you know? Instead of letting the problem define you, you choose to write a new story.
And that's huge for everything we're talking about, right? Louise was all about reminding us, we are not victims. We have choices. We can choose different thoughts, beliefs, and ultimately a different reality.
We're not just along for the ride, we're active participants in our own lives.
Exactly. And that can feel amazing, right? To know you have that power, even if it's a little scary to actually do it.
Totally. But yeah, change is scary. And Louise talks about that too, doesn't she?
Oh, definitely. She talks about how we resist change, especially in the areas where we need it most.
We cling to what's familiar, even if it's not good for us.
It's true. But she wants us to lean into that resistance, like get curious about what it's trying to teach us.
Because the things we resist the most, those are often the areas with the biggest potential for growth.
Exactly. She says healing often doesn't happen in spite of resistance, it happens because of it. Those messy, uncomfortable places are where we find our strength.
And you know, it's funny, the things we resist often mirror back the very things we want to manifest. Like wanting financial abundance, but freaking out at the thought of making a budget. That resistance is telling you something.
For sure. Like deep down, a part of us is trying to protect ourselves from something, even if that something is our own growth.
Isn't that interesting? What we fear the most is often the key to, like, unlocking a whole new level.
Totally. And Louise would want us to approach that fear with curiosity, with kindness. Ask yourself, what am I really afraid of here?
Because when you shine a light on those fears, they often lose their power over you.
Exactly. And that's when you can actually start making different choices, taking steps toward the life you want.
So you mentioned earlier, Louise gives us like actual exercises to use these principles. We've talked about affirmations and visualizations. What else does she recommend?
One of my favorites is the mirror work. Looking at yourself in the mirror and saying affirmations of self-love, acceptance.
See, that sounds intense. Like, I don't know if I could look at myself in the mirror and be like, I love and approve of myself. Seriously.
I get it. It can feel awkward, but there's something really powerful about looking yourself in the eye and saying those things out loud.
It's like you're confronting those negative thoughts head on. Instead of letting them whisper doubts, you're hitting them with the truth of your worth.
Yes. And Louise would say, this is a practice. You might not believe it at first, but over time, you chip away at those old beliefs and make space for a new, more loving self-image.
So you're basically retraining your brain to see yourself through the lens of, like, kindness instead of judgment.
And that changes everything, your relationships, your career, your health, even just how you feel about yourself on a daily basis.
Because when you love and accept yourself, you start setting healthier boundaries, making better choices. You even attract different people and opportunities.
Exactly. And isn't that what Louise's work is all about? Seeing our own potential, embracing our power, and creating a life that reflects that.
It totally is. And you know what? I think that's a good spot for us to pause for now.
Agreed. We've covered a ton. From the power of our thoughts to forgiveness, self-love, and even taking action in the real world.
We dove into Louise's ideas about abundance, releasing the need for our problems, even that intense-sounding mirror work.
And I bet there's even more to uncover.
Oh, absolutely. Welcome back to our deep dive into You Can Heal Your Life. It's one thing to talk about all this stuff, but what I love about Louise is she gives us actual things we can do. So what are some of your favorite Louise Hay techniques, like things you've actually used?
One that's really powerful, especially for letting go of like past hurts or limiting beliefs, is the releasing exercise.
Okay, break it down for us. How does that work?
It's kind of surprisingly simple. Louise says, write down a list of everything you want to release. But be specific. That's key. So not just, I release fear, but I release the fear of speaking up at work. You know, something our listeners can relate to right now.
Yeah, because who doesn't have fears about speaking their truth, right? Whether it's at work, relationships. So this makes it really practical.
And once you have your list, here's the powerful part. You read each item out loud and then say, I release you now with love and gratitude.
It's like a ceremony, giving those old fears the boot. Do
Yeah.
people have, like, emotional reactions when they do
Oh,
this?
totally. I had this client, she was hung up on a past relationship, so much hurt and anger. And as she did the exercise, she just started crying. It was like she was finally letting herself feel it all and let it go.
We all carry that baggage, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes you just need to, like, air it out.
Exactly. And Louise reminds us, we're not going for perfection here. It's a process. We might need to do the exercise a bunch of times, even for the same stuff, as we heal.
It's like anything else, practice makes better. And speaking of practice, I want to circle back to self-love for a sec. Louise is all about it being the foundation, but it's also the hardest part, am I right?
It's true. It's one thing to understand it as a concept, but to actually live it, especially if you've dealt with trauma or negative self-talk, that's a whole other thing.
So how do we bridge that gap from idea to reality?
Awareness is huge, Louise would say. Start noticing how you talk to yourself, the thoughts you think, the beliefs you're holding on to.
Because if we're always criticizing, putting ourselves down, we're just reinforcing that negativity, right?
Exactly, feeding those gremlins. Louise would ask, would you talk to your best friend that way?
That's a really good point. If someone talked to our bestie the way we talk to ourselves sometimes, yikes.
Right, so she's saying, give yourself that same kindness, that compassion. Self-love isn't some luxury, it's essential.
It's like the oxygen mask on a plane. Got to help yourself first.
Yes, because if you're running on empty, you can't be there for yourself or anyone else.
So for someone listening who's like, okay, I get it, but how do I love myself more? What would Louise say?
She's got tools for that. Affirmations, of course.
Yeah.
Looking in that mirror, saying, I love and accept myself, even if it feels weird at first.
And it doesn't have to be this super serious thing either, right?
Yeah.
Louise loved to bring joy into it.
Totally. She'd tell you to put on music, dance around, write yourself a love letter, appreciate all the good stuff about you.
Exactly. Make it fun. Find what feels good for you.
You know, what gets me about Louise's work is it's not just about us changing individually. It ripples outward. It's about relationships, community, the whole world even.
When we heal ourselves, we heal the world. It's like we raise the vibration for everyone.
Exactly. And what a legacy to leave, right?
So as we wrap up our deep dive here, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from You Can Heal Your Life?
That they're not alone. Healing is possible. And they have the power to create a life they truly love.
I love that. And remember, this is a journey, not a finish line. There will be bumps along the way.
Yeah.
But every step towards self-love, forgiveness, taking charge of your own happiness, that has a ripple effect way beyond just you.
So be kind to yourselves, embrace the journey, and don't ever underestimate that power within you to heal and create an amazing life.
And on that note, this deep dive comes to an end. But this is just the beginning. Go back to your highlights, try out Louise's techniques, and most importantly, believe in your own power to heal and create a life you love.
We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and a spark of inspiration. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and check back for more episodes as we dive into new worlds of thought, one book at a time. Until then, keep your mind set in stone and your curiosity open. This has been a Big L Riz Media podcast, where big ideas meet lasting impressions.